Welcome to Zero Love, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of the sports world with the most fascinating people in the game. From athletes to coaches to innovators to executives, we bring you their stories, their passion, and their grit that defines sport at its core. And today we have ITA CEO David Mullins, only the third executive in the 70 years of the ITA, giving us some time to talk about all these things that are going on in college tennis, the NIL stuff, moving NCAA Championship to moving the NCAA Individual Championship to the fall, why we should be paying more attention to Division II, Division III, and the holistic approach they take there, the great tennis they have. We talk about scheduling matches and what they can do more to get fans engaged. Such a fun conversation. I hope you enjoy it. I'm JY Aubone. Let's get into Zero Love. All right, Dave Mullins, welcome to Zero Love.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, gosh, you are such a busy person, so I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about everything that's going on in college tennis. And it's really interesting from a couple perspectives because first, you're only the third executive leader in the 70-year history. First of all, congratulations, because clearly that's a tough position to find. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How's everything going as you roll into all of this?
Well, fortunately, I've been with the ITA since August 2019. I was a college coach for 12 years. I played college tennis for 4 years. And so leading into this position, there was no big surprises or anything like that. I think if I'd started January 1st and I'd been in some other industry or some other organization, I think I'd be feeling completely overwhelmed and underwater right now. But I knew what was coming. I have been traveling a lot recently, just trying to get out there and especially interact with coaches and other stakeholders and get feedback from them as to what would they like to see here in the coming years? What changes do we need to embrace or adopt to ensure the safety of college tennis for many generations to come? So yeah, lots coming at us from many different angles. Our industry is being really shook up in ways that it probably has not been for at least 40, 50 years. And the rate of change and trying to keep up with all those changes is just something many other industries deal with, right? I mean, we have all these tariffs going on right now, and some industries are just, they're tearing their hair out as to what decisions they need to make, but they're more accustomed to that than our industry, athletic directors, board of trustees, everybody within the NCAA college landscape. It's new for us and different, so we're having to catch up quickly.
And like you mentioned, you were part of this as a coach, but also a player. So you've been involved for a long time. For us, it feels like, in the moment, and especially for newer fans and newer players, it feels like this is chaotic. But what is this like compared to from the very beginning for when you first got in? I mean, is this more change than ever in a shorter amount of time? Or it's like, hey, we've been through a lot. We're going to get through this just like we did everything else.
This is different. So I started my college tennis career in 1998, and since then, going through as a player and then starting my career as a coach, there was just an upward tick in terms of the investment into Olympic sports. I mean, my first year as a college coach, I was paid $10,000. I went on then, and that was as a head coach. And then I went to be an assistant coach and I was making $25,000 and just trying to teach every lesson I could, coach every camp, run tournaments, do whatever I could to stay in the industry. Those positions now are paid many multiples of of what I was being paid, say, in the early 2000s. In terms of, the budget that coaches have to work with, the additional staff as well. I mean, we have third assistant coaches now at some Division I colleges. You think of nutritionists, sports and conditionings, marketing and communications. There has been just every year an increase in investment in athletic departments, in Olympic sports, in all sports in general. And similar to maybe like the housing market, right? Or the stock, you think it's only going to go in one direction. And that's kind of the expectation. And then something happens and the bubble bursts and everybody's scrambling to figure out what is next. And so we're kind of at that point now where the bubble has burst. It's not business as usual. It's not just, a slight change here or there where we had the Alston money several years ago that athletic departments were able to give some additional monies to student athletes to pay for academic needs that they had or cost of attendance. Those were slight changes that were upsetting to athletic departments. They had to find additional monies, but trying to find an additional $3 million to pay for cost of attendance versus $22 million, which is likely to come out of this House settlement. Athletic departments don't have $22 million laying around. Some people might think they do, but if you actually look at their balance sheets, they're set up, as not-for-profits, and some make a little bit of money, some lose a little bit of money, but nobody's making an additional $22 million a year. So these are new revenues that these athletic departments need to go out and find in order to continue to support their teams the way they have over the last several years.
And how is that going to work? Because what's difficult about colleges is that not everybody's in the same position. Not everybody has the same department. Some, they're trying to win championships. For some, it's okay if they don't, as long as they do their best and they have a great education and they never have a player that goes pro, and that program is still a success within what they're doing. So are they all having the same problems, or some have different problems than others still?
Yeah, again, there's kind of reshuffling of the decks here, trying to figure out, where do they fit in this new landscape? What do they need to do to continue to be successful, especially in football? Football is the driver of much of this change. But then you're also hearing about, say, the Big East schools that are very much focused on their basketball teams, and maybe they'll get an edge because they'll be able to give more money to the basketball team than maybe some of the SEC or Big Ten, who are having to give more of the pie to their football team. And so, again, everybody's trying to figure out where do they fit in this new world. And I think a lot of athletic directors feel obliged to opt into this House settlement and continue to compete with the big programs, because they're not able to go to their donor base or their alumni base and say, we don't think we can compete at that level anymore, so we're going to opt out of it and just, kind of do our own thing. Then donors go, oh, why don't you believe in your university? And if you're not, if you don't believe in us being able to win these championships, then we'll find a new athletic director. And so there's a lot of pressure that I think these athletic directors, athletic departments are under to still kind of join this arms race. But ultimately, they're going to be in a position where they're going to have hard decisions to make, and they're going to need to try and find an additional $1 million here or $2 million there. And the easiest thing for them to do is just to start cutting Olympic sports. And that's where the concern comes in. Currently, the NCAA, in order to be NCAA eligible, you have to carry at least 16 sports. There's concern that maybe that minimum goes away and we go to 4 sports or maybe there's no number, and athletic departments decide, okay, we're going to support men's and women's basketball, football, and maybe they choose, 3 or 4 other women's sports in order to meet the Title IX requirements because of the football team. So we're interested to see, it's still going to take a few years for this to play out. And maybe a school opts in this year and decides to opt out next year because they just can't compete, and they recognize that. Maybe they go from Division 1. We just saw St. Francis choose to go from Division 1 to Division 3. We're seeing athletic departments being shut altogether in the Academy of Art, Division 2 school that had some very good sports programs. The entire athletic department shut down. I mean, there's so much. There's the enrollment issue. In the States, I mean, there's I think 10 million less students in college today than there was 10 or 12 years ago. And then birth rates are going down. I mean, there's so many things coming at us. So I don't mean, I just, there's a lot to be considered here.
Yeah, I was going to say that's tough. And because so much of this is out of your hands and you're
Mm-hmm.
having to wait for other people to make decisions and then you react and then you have to organize. But where's the positivity in the future? What's good that's coming out of this from a player's perspective? In a way, I look back even to when I was playing. It's maybe this was part of the bubble, but is it fair to say it's been as good as it can be as far as the way they're treated in school? Players are staying longer because, with NIL, there's more of a reason, which means they actually train more. They are in a more relaxed environment where they can develop, get stronger, so they're more ready to go pro. I mean, the level of college tennis from the player side is higher probably than ever. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so can we expect it to stay that way and grow? Tough questions because we don't know the answers, but where do you see things going in the future?
Yeah, I mean, at the top of Division One for sure. I mean, it's never been better. I think at mid-major level, that experience is maybe still similar to what it was 10 years ago. But at the top of Division One, the amount of resources that have been thrown at those student athletes, the level of support, yeah, it's never been a better time. If you can get a scholarship to one of these Power Four institutions, you're in for a very good experience. You're walking away from your college experience, especially on the women's side, with tens of $1,000s saved up if you're smart about it, between all the scholarship monies, but the cost of attendance, the Alston money, but then NIL, yeah, the fact that these opportunities have now opened up for student athletes, and you don't necessarily have to be the best tennis player. You can just be very creative on social media. You can be hardworking, entrepreneurial. So there's never been a better time to be a student athlete, as far as I'm concerned. Now there's more, I think, demands, expectations, pressures, but I think there's always been the case. When you and I played, we wanted to win as badly as this generation. But yeah, I think there's more depth in the game. I mean, we could say maybe back in when we had the McEnroes of the world, Stan Smith, Arthur Ashes, college tennis was producing Grand Slam champions. But since that era, this is definitely the strongest era. And I would argue we're probably, from a depth perspective, I mean, just we can see that teams, again, the differential in rankings, a team ranked 45 can now beat a team ranked 20, which maybe 20 years ago wasn't happening. So it's never been a better time. On the tennis side of things, I think ITA, college tennis, it's never been better. The relationships that we have with the ATP, the ITF, the USTA, like from a tennis side, things have never been better. But from a collegiate, third level institution model, things have never been more uncertain, which is a shame, but this is where we land. So how do we, ensure that these opportunities, like I said earlier, are around for future generations? So yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. I think we have to work towards figuring out how tennis becomes a revenue generating sport. How are we starting to take advantage of increased crowd sizes coming to these dual matches, selling tickets? How do they use their facilities at community hubs for programming, selling memberships, selling court time, TV, broadcasting? Yeah, how do we pull it all together so that tennis, when an athletic director is looking at all the sports and they're deciding, okay, we're going to keep the ones that are generating revenue and the others that are not, how do we make sure that tennis is in the box that is generating revenue?
And it's an interesting time from not necessarily cracked rackets, but they started a few years ago really promoting college tennis. And so great that they started a couple years ago to bring in so much attention. So at this moment, there's a product that, investors and conferences can look at. And, so will we be seeing more of those streaming of matches across like all these matches like they're already doing and just expanded more?
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, it has to be multi-pronged. I mean, I think we're living in a world where linear TV still rules the day, but with each passing year, less and less so. But it's kind of like a lot of other things. I don't know, pick like the yellow pages, right? There was a day where the yellow pages were delivered to every household. It's not as viable a business now, but it's still a business. Or radio, pick your industry there, and so linear TV still plays a role. We haven't quite cracked the code on that. It's so expensive. I mean, it's to do a high level production of a dual match, six courts, multi angle production. You're looking at potentially $40,000-$50,000 a day. So
Wow.
that's hard to replicate. We've had conversations with ESPN, with Tennis Channel. There still needs to be a portion of our season that I think is on linear TV. Can it be our NCAA championships at the end of the year? Can it be our indoor championships in February? And then maybe some of the conference championships, SEC, ACC, Big Ten. Can they be on a linear platform at least in the next few years? But then, yes, longer term, how do we create consistency, especially at the top of Division One, so that when you see a college tennis match, it looks very similar from one stream to another? Because right now we have a multitude of camera systems, operators. They're all at different angles. Some are too low. Some are blocked in some way. The quality, they're at 30 frames per second instead of 60 frames per second. I mean, there's so many differences there. And how do we have some consistency across the board that folks at ESPN take us seriously and see, okay, this is a good quality product that's reliable, that's consistent, that we don't have any issues, broadcasting on a consistent basis. So there's still a lot to be worked out there, but I'm spending a lot of time right now trying to figure out how do we pull all of this together and make it easy to find, easy to view, an enjoyable viewing experience, more interactive experience, whether that's just potentially sports wagering as well, and how does all that look? So a lot of interesting conversations, but we need to pull this all together sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and you mentioned a little bit ago the indoor championships, the NCAA team championship. You guys recently had your individual championships in the fall for the first time ever. To talk about changes, I mean, all the
Mhm.
other stuff is very important as well, and probably more important. But that was a big change too. What was that like to have it in the fall there? What were some of the positive, negatives? What was your guys' take? Is that something that you think might continue? Not sure yet. What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, this was something that kind of came out of COVID. We did a big reimagining Division One college tennis study. We spoke with a lot of athletic directors, and they were pretty clear. It's like your season doesn't make sense. You do this individual stuff in the fall, but then you have this individual championships in May. It's a 2 week tournament. How's that good for anybody? You have all these players pulling out. So they were kind of scratching their head at it, and they were like, it would be great if you could define the seasons for us. Make fall the individual, spring the dual match team season. And so that was kind of the motivation to start taking a close look at this. The NCAA were open to that, and also recognize that that 2 week tournament, it's tough on their staff, it's tough on the host side, it's very expensive, and again, the number of withdrawals kind of with each passing year just kept going up and up. Those players that make a run in the team event, they're exhausted. They just want to win for the team. They're like, I don't care about my own accolades. Like, I don't need to play this. Or they're leaving back home to Europe to play German or French league. So there was a lot of issues with it that potentially could be tackled by having it in the fall. And so, yeah, over the course of a couple of years, working with coaches, athletic directors, the NCAA, we came up with this new pathway. So players had to qualify rather than using the year-end rankings to get into the event. So we had the first pilot year last fall, as you mentioned. I think it went well. I mean, the feedback overall has been quite positive. Is it perfect? No, it's not. I think with the first year of it, a lot of coaches still trying to figure out, well, which players should I take and to which events, and what about the players that aren't on that pathway? Where should I be taking them? So I think the event itself went well. Was in Waco at Baylor University. They'll be hosting the team event in May, but we need to go through another year of it. So it's a 2-year pilot. We'll get through next fall, 2025. It'll be in Lake Nona, Orlando at the USTA campus next November. And then decisions will be made after that, whether it's staying in the fall or it's going back to May, or maybe there's some other solution that we haven't thought about.
Yeah, I think what's important for tennis traditionalists to keep in mind is like, look, we know that college tennis needs to continue to innovate. They've been doing that for 20, 30 years, 40 years, always trying to get better.
Yeah.
Sometimes something works, sometimes it doesn't, but you can't just sit there and keep things the same. So, we have to be willing to fail a little bit, in order to get better in the long run. And I love that you guys tried it. I was the worst NCAA individual player ever. I was toast, and I was one of those players like, I just want to win for my teammates, and then I'm there playing by myself. And especially like if I had to stay all week because we lost round of 16, maybe you don't go back home. You're there for like 4 or 5 days in the hotel room, and you're just like, where are my teammates? And you're playing for university, but it's not the same. And the withdrawals really is a lot. People don't understand that. Like, it is a great honor to make that championship as an individual, but without that, for the Americans, that U.S. Open wildcard before, there's been a change there now. Won't get into that, but for the foreigners, which takes up a lot of college tennis now, there was not a lot of incentive for them to play, and it just took away some of the high level talent that was at the tournament. So got to try. It was great, but we've been talking a lot about really, the power for the top of Division One. But where I've become a lot more interested in, especially since I really got into coaching, is how much tennis there is in college outside of that. It's and a lot of high level tennis, which I will admit, when I was younger, I didn't know. When I started to have players that went to play there, we looked at those schools and we watched those matches, I realized like they could be playing top Division One. Their UTR looks lower because they're just playing against lower UTR opponents, but you watch them and you're like, no, they're good. If they were in a higher level team, they would automatically move up in their UTR. You can see the level. Why don't we talk, not you, but in general, like, why are we all, especially coaches and players, we're so fixated on that top level? We miss out on so much great tennis at D2 and D3. And that's why, you talked about that school that, is not Division One anymore. And my thought right away is, what's wrong with that?
Nothing. Yeah, nothing. I mean, that's the thing. Different philosophies, especially Division One to Division Three. We could argue that Division Three, it's a much more holistic experience. There's equal emphasis placed upon academics and athletics, where Division One, we could argue now, there's too much emphasis placed on athletics and not enough on academics, and that full kind of social integrated experience on a campus. And we're not alone. My son is a Division One college soccer player. And there was the same conversations when he was going through the recruiting process, just speaking with other parents, and they kind of know I haven't, work in the college. So they'd be coming to me asking questions, and I'd be having the same thing. Like, it's okay. Look at, keep an open mind. Why Division One? Why are you so fixated like on Division One? And it's like, you can see them like, kind of thinking for the first time critically about it. They had always just assumed that these opportunities only existed at the Stanfords or the Florida States or wherever it is, and didn't realize that there's thousands of opportunities at these other universities, maybe because they didn't know they had athletic departments. They've done no research. But I think it changes just in conversations like this. I mean, I've been on many podcasts where we talk about the same thing. And now, there's more information out there for parents and junior players than ever before. Like nobody can say, like when I was going through the recruiting process in a different country, there was nothing. I didn't have the internet, So, I mean, the amount of information out there now for parents and junior players, there's no excuse, but there is a level of snobbiness I think we all have. I mean, for any sport, it's like I love soccer, but I only watch the Premiership. MLS is below me, like or NBA. I'm only going to watch the playoffs. I don't care about what's happening right now today. I mean, we gravitate to the top of the sport. It's just, I don't know. It's just within all of us. But if you're a coach or a parent and you have a child who's interested in going down this pathway, then everything should be on the table. I mean, there's just so many great opportunities out there, and every kid is built differently. It's like, is this, parent, is this your dream for them to go play at Stanford, or, is it theirs? Like, or have they just been brainwashed into thinking, anything less than that is a failure, and that's not a good approach to life. So, we're always going to be promoting. We say we represent 7 divisions of college tennis. And so we're pushing everybody to explore all those opportunities. And we do have some tools on our website that we've been told, have been useful to this process. So just kind of a step-by-step kind of guide on how you can, start this journey to getting a college tennis scholarship or a place on a roster.
Yeah, that's, whenever I've been trying to help kids look into colleges, they're starting that recruiting process, I always ask for a big list. Mm-hmm. And I think now more than ever, and with each year, it's always interesting when I see the names of the school. They're obviously all Division I for the most part. Mm-hmm. And, I just start to ask them why. And it's very interesting when they actually get asked why once or twice, they actually don't really have a response. Mm-hmm. They're like, it's because it's a good school. What mm-hmm. makes it a good school? Have you been there? Have you been to the city? Have you been to the town? Have you met the professors? They actually don't know. And so they get stuck on that. And that's why it's like, we have all these conversations and podcasts about Division I and NIL and football and the big schools. And look, I'm going to be the first one to admit it. I went to Florida State because I was a Florida State football fan growing up, watching them win championships. Mm-hmm. But, like you said, there's so many educational resources on the website now where so many of these Division IIs, Division IIIs, they have educational programs that are life-changing. And 99.9% of athletes, not just tennis players, across all sports, will not make a living playing their pro sport. Mm-hmm. But they're so fixated on such a big school. Like, I want to do as much as I can to let people know, like, you can still have an incredible, great competitive environment in tennis with, like you said, a holistic experience actually preparing you for life. I even know one of the kids I went to work with, this was a little bit of a experience for me. He decided to go to a big time university and was okay not playing on the varsity team, which hurt my young coaching soul. Mm-hmm. He worked so hard. And he became the captain of the club team. Mm-hmm. And to a lot that have worked for years, they were saying, like, look, I'll say it. For me, it's like we failed. Like, we had this goal. But then he told me everything he was learning. He was, as being the captain, he had to be in charge of the budget and telling players, you're actually not good enough to be on the team, so you have to try out next year. That's hard for a 19-year-old kid to say. Yeah. And planning travel and team meetings and everything. I'm like, he's done more at 19, 20 years old to prepare himself for life after work than I did. I just played and trained.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great point. And it's hard. I mean, that's the thing. If I go play college tennis, I want to be playing on the team. Like, I mean, a lot of players are making these decisions and are happy to sit on the roster, sit on the bench. I don't know that that's a great experience for 4 years. And so, identifying the right fit, I think players should be realistic with themselves and yeah, looking at UTR or WTN or the rankings of the teams, like, honestly, where am I going to fit in here? I still obviously will get better and want to get better, but I think at that age, you're getting better from playing matches. There's only so much you can train. And so, yeah, I mean, I would encourage, again, all junior players, where do you have the best shot of playing in the first year or two? Maybe not out of the gates, maybe you're fighting for 6, 7, but by your sophomore year, you want to make sure because it's a very different experience you have when you're competing for your team on a weekly basis versus sitting on the bench. It's just, those are two very different experiences.
Yeah. And I want to bring it back a little bit. I probably should have gotten to this a little bit earlier, but with trying to get more exposure to tennis fans, to this great product that's out there. Gosh, I'm sure you've heard the same. There are so many professional players right now that played in college that still think college is a more enjoyable and fun experience than even playing on the tour. Even though they might be making a living, they had so much fun playing college tennis. So in trying to bring this exposure to fans and everything, there's been a lot of talk from, these hardcore fans that are really following it, that try to watch as much as they can, where they struggle to, like, the scheduling of some of these matches where they can't make it out, where, we had the NCAA championships, men and women play at the same time. You're kind of having to choose. I know you're not directly involved with choosing all that, but what's been the talk behind all that? Some of these matches sometimes happen on a Tuesday at 1 p.m. We would play Florida sometimes on a Tuesday and at Florida State, and it's like, we're not going to get as many fans as like a Friday night or Saturday. What's been the talk behind all that to try to figure all this out?
Yeah, I think again, this is kind of just legacy, right? It's there when, again, I was playing in the late 90s, 2000s. There wasn't, there's no social media, right? It's more just, hey, play your matches whenever you can play them, save as many costs as you can. So a lot of conversations you'd have as a coach, it's like, okay, hey, there's only a direct flight at 6 p.m. So can we play at 11 a.m. instead of 1 p.m. so we can catch that flight and get home and not miss class the next day? And I think especially since COVID, I mean, there's so much flexibility now with online learning options. More players are taking online classes than ever before. In the fall, they're traveling to 25Ks and gone for 4 or 5 days at a time. But yeah, are always encouraging our coaches to start thinking a little bit more about the fan and about your venue. I think I've had conversations with folks where it's like, when you build a tennis facility, you start with the court and the fans are kind of secondary. And if you think about a basketball stadium or football stadium, they think about the fan first. It's like, yeah, we have the field. That's fine. Like, we're not worried about the field. Whereas tennis coaches, we're so obsessed about the layout of the courts and the court surface and the player experience, space between the courts. And we're not thinking about the fans. And I think now, if we want to keep up going forward, we're going to have to start thinking about our venues in a different way, about the fan experience. If we're going to be charging for tickets for folks to come, we need to make sure that is an experience that is at a level that they will, have at another sporting event. Pick your league, maybe it's another college sport, but it's at a minimum level that we can all live with. That is a good experience for all. And so, yeah, we do ourselves no favors with our scheduling in many instances. Football, and like, take Nick Saban when he was at Alabama, the most powerful coach out there. He didn't know what time he was playing on Saturday. It was based on TV. It's like, hey, you're playing at 11 a.m. on Saturday, and then 2 days before, it's like, no, actually, Nick, this game's going to be at 7 p.m. It's a night game. And it's like, okay, if we did that with our tennis coaches, their minds, I mean, their heads would explode. And this is where we need to start. And it's not going to happen overnight. It needs to start changing. Maybe it changes over time. Maybe there's more pressure from the athletic departments or athletic directors to get the coaches to be more fan friendly and engaging with their communities. But we really need to start heading in that direction. I think with scheduling, yeah, sometimes it's what does the modern day fan prefer? Like, that's what I love about college tennis, is that there's 6 matches going on at the same time. So, you and I are playing, have an exciting first set, 7-5 you. The beginning of the second set's not that interesting, but 2 courts away, they're now 5-all in the first set, or they're in a tie break. Let me put my focus there. So I think, having multiple matches going on at the same time helps our sport. It differentiates ourselves from the other typical tennis products that are out there. But how you do it in a way that is understandable and the average fan grasps, I still think we're tinkering with that.
Oh, well, no, that's really great that you guys are thinking about that and understanding it's time for change. Because, yeah, I never remember, like you said, there's class and everything. And football, it's a little bit different because it's one day and they can go home. Season's a little shorter. But, I mean, I never remember going to a volleyball game at 1 p.m. on a Wednesday, right? Or a basketball game at 1 p.m. And they have a long season. Never went to watch a Florida State basketball game at 1 p.m. on a Thursday,
Right.
So it can be done, right? So that's great.
It,
So
it can be done. I just add there, yeah, I mean, I think we could all live with if it's on a Tuesday night because of some TV opening. Tennis
right,
Channel has an opening, or ESPN. Hey, okay, let's put the focus there. But yeah, if it's just because it's convenient within a travel schedule and you want to catch, a flight, and I'm all for saving. There's a balancing act here that needs to be done. But did you do everything possible to put it on a day and time that embraces the community, or did you just take a shortcut and take the easy way out here?
right. Well, gosh, with so much going on with everything that you have, what are some interesting things that college tennis fans should be looking forward now that maybe is not talked about as much that you're really excited about working on, whether maybe it's not because it's going to work well, but you can see the opportunity to make some great change. What are some exciting things that college tennis fans can look forward to?
Yeah, I can't share too much at this point. We're still developing. So I've spent, since January 1st, I've been receiving feedback from our board, staff, our student athlete council, coaches, outside stakeholders that have a familiarity with our sport. And we had a board meeting on Monday, and I kind of ran them through all the themes that were coming through from that feedback that I've received. And that is going to influence our direction heading into probably January 2026, the spring season. There's a few things that we need to start putting in place here later this summer into the fall that I hope will impact the spring next year. We really want to figure out how do we enhance our Division One indoor championships, because we have lots of conversations and are able to give input about the NCAA championship, but it's not our championship. And so there's a limit to what we can do there. But our indoor championships really is, coaches, they win that's a big deal. There's bonuses, they put their banners up. It's a true national championship. So we're really trying to figure out how do we enhance that event. We made some changes this past year. But how do we make this kind of a something that is in the sporting calendar and the tennis calendar that is, considered by the general public as this is something I want to go to. This is something, especially tennis fans, that this is something I want to come to on a regular basis because it's such a great event. And so we're working on how do we really enhance that event and then tell stories from that event leading into the rest of the season. And so, but as I mentioned earlier, it's how do we get more cohesive, because we're doing so much. I mean, if anybody goes to our website, wearecollegetennis.com, they start going through, I mean, we have so many menus, there's so many things that we're doing.
You get lost there, yeah.
You get lost, right? And so how do we get more deliberate in telling stories about college tennis, and creating a place where, similar to if you go to, say, the ATP website, right? And Challenger TV is a great example of that. So I can go to Challenger TV, over the top streaming. I can see the schedule. I click on the link. I can watch it live. I can interact. I can see the statistics. I can lay a bet on that. How do we take some lessons from what the ATP in particular are doing very well right now and implement them into college tennis, and just have it as a more digestible, easy to find, everybody knows where to go? And so we're spending a lot of time and energy and figuring out what investments need to be made in order to do that. Because at the end of the day, we're a small not-for-profit, 13 full-time employees. We have an annual budget of $2 million. We have to get very creative as to how we spread our resources around. But we have to meet the moment as well. And if we have to make additional investments and draw down from our rainy day fund to make these things possible so that college tennis continues to survive and thrive, then we're going to take some risks.
Yeah, well, I can't imagine how filled up your calendar and your organizer is with everything that you have to try to put together for the future. There's college tennis, but everyone has their own different types of problems that they're trying to figure out. It's not all one thing. So I really appreciate you taking some time to talk some college tennis. And I definitely, rooting for you all. College tennis is an amazing product. And so, good luck with everything moving forward.
Thank you, and appreciate you promoting college tennis and having these conversations, and happy to come back on a year from now and we can see where we're at.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.